The economy is booming, you're just not in it. That's not just some punchline to get you to click on this video, not exclusively. It's the actual state of things in 2026. Last month, consumer sentiment fell to a 74-year low, the worst Americans have felt about their financial lives since they started measuring it back when the country was recovering from a world war. And in that exact same week, the S&P 500 punched through 7,400 points and kept climbing. Listen to that again. The people who own the economy have never been more confident. The people who live in it have never been more miserable. Same country, same week, same headlines. Two completely different planets. So which one is real? Is the economy great or is it terrible? Here's the uncomfortable answer. Yes. For a couple of years now, economists have had a cute little name for this. They call it the K-shaped economy. The idea is that after a shock, a pandemic, an inflation spike, whatever, the recovery splits. One group's fortunes shoot up the top arm of the letter K, the other group's slide down the bottom arm. Two lines, one starting point going in opposite directions. It was supposed to be temporary, a weird artifact of a weird moment. Things would normalize, the two arms of the K would close back up into a nice, boring, single line, and we'd all get back to arguing about normal stuff. That's not what happened. The K didn't close, the K became the floor plan. And that's what we're talking about today, because the most important economic story of this decade isn't inflation, and it isn't interest rates, and it isn't whatever the Fed mumbled at its last meeting. It's that the average American has stopped being a useful idea. There is no average anymore. There's the top and there's the bottom, and the gap between them has quietly turned into the whole show. Let me give you the picture that made this click for me. Disney runs cruises, of course they do. And right now, the high-end Disney cruise business, the suites, the concierge tier, the sailings that cost a family more than a used car, is booked solid. Customers pulling in $150,000 a year and up are reserving these things a year out. Demand at the top is, in the most literal sense, off the charts. Now drive about 15 minutes inland from any port that one of those ships leaves from. Walk into a grocery store and watch how people pay. Because down at the bottom half of the income distribution, the story is credit cards maxing out on groceries. Not vacations, not flat screens, eggs, chicken. The boring stuff you have to buy or you don't eat. People are financing dinner. Same economy. One half is financing a Disney suite, the other half is financing a rotisserie chicken. You might think that's an exaggeration for effect. It isn't. Credit card balances in this country have blown past $1.2 trillion, and the share of borrowers who are seriously behind, 90 days or more past due, has climbed to levels we haven't seen in over a decade. Meanwhile, household net worth at the top has never been higher, because the top owns the assets, and the assets are on fire. That's the whole trick, by the way, and it's time to pull back the curtain on the K-shaped economy. Because once you understand the engine driving this thing, you cannot unsee it. Here's the mechanism. It's simpler than people make it sound. If your money comes from owning things, stocks, real estate, a business, a fat 401k that's been compounding for 30 years, then the last few years have been the best of your life. Asset prices have gone vertical. The S&P at 7,400 isn't an abstraction to you. It's your portfolio. Your house quietly doubled. Your money makes money while you sleep, and then that money makes more money, and you didn't have to lift a finger. If your money comes from working, from selling your hours, then you've been getting steamrolled. Your wages went up, sure. They went up like 4 or 5%. And then rent went up more than that. Groceries went up more than that. Insurance, childcare, the cost of literally existing, all of it outran your raise. You ran faster and the floor moved faster. So we've got two economies running on two completely different fuels. One runs on assets, one runs on wages. And here's the thing, those two fuels haven't just grown at different speeds, they've started moving in opposite directions. When the Fed keeps money loose, asset prices float higher, great for owners. When the cost of living grinds up, it eats wages, terrible for workers. The same conditions that pump the top arm of the K are squeezing the bottom arm. It's not that one group is winning a race against the other, it's that the thing making the winners win is the same thing making the losers lose. Think about it like a casino where the house pays you in two different currencies. The owners get paid in chips that automatically multiply. The workers get paid in cash that slowly burns. You can be standing at the same table playing the same game and walk out with wildly different outcomes. Not because you played differently, but because of which currency you were handed at the door. And most people were handed their currency at birth. Now, you might think, okay, inequality, gap between rich and poor. We've heard this song before. What's actually new? What's new is the gaslighting. And I mean that almost literally. In a normal downturn, things are bad and the data agrees that things are bad. Unemployment's up, the market's down, everyone's miserable together. There's a grim solidarity to it. The headlines match your bank account. This is different. Right now, you can be falling behind every single month, watching your buffer shrink, juggling which bill to pay late, while every screen you look at screams that the economy is at record highs. Record market, record net worth, record corporate profits. The official numbers are euphoric, and you're sitting there wondering if you're the problem, if you're just bad with money, if everyone else figured out some secret you missed. You didn't miss a secret. You're just reading the top arm scoreboard while you live on the bottom arm. Here's a scenario that probably sounds familiar. Two people, both 35, both went to the same college, both make a respectable salary. Person A bought a house in 2019 and threw spare cash into an index fund. Person B rented because the timing never worked out and kept the savings in cash to feel safe. Same income, same choices, more or less. 6 years later, Person A has a few $100,000 in equity and a portfolio that's doubled. Person B has roughly what they started with, minus what inflation ate. One of them now feels rich, the other feels like they're drowning. Neither of them is wrong. The line that separated them wasn't talent or work ethic, it was the single decision to own versus not own, made at a moment when nobody knew it would matter this much. And it compounds. Take a third person, call her the small business owner. She runs a little cafe. Her costs went up across the board. Beans, milk, rent on the storefront, wages for her staff who, fairly, needed raises to keep up with their own grocery bills. Every input on her balance sheet climbed at once. She can't raise her prices fast enough to match because her customers are the bottom half of the K and they're already financing their own groceries. So she's getting squeezed from both ends, paying top arm prices to operate while serving bottom arm wallets. On paper, she owns a business. In reality, she owns a very stressful job. Ownership only pumps you up the K if you own the right things. Owning a struggling Main Street business in 2026 is not the same asset class as owning the index fund. And the gap between those two kinds of owner is its own little K hiding inside the big one. That's the part nobody tells you. The split isn't just rich versus poor. It's owners of appreciating assets versus everybody else. And everybody else includes a lot of people who, by any old-fashioned definition, did everything right. Now the counter-argument, the serious one, because there is a serious one. Defenders of the everything is fine story will point out that unemployment is low. People have jobs, wages at the very bottom, minimum wage and near minimum work actually did rise faster than inflation for a stretch. So how bad can it really be? And that's fair as far as it goes. The bottom of the labour market did get a real bump. The problem is the middle, the vast, sprawling middle. The people who make too much to qualify for help and not enough to own assets got nothing but the bill. They're employed, they're doing everything right, and they're going backwards in slow motion, which is somehow worse than going backwards fast, because at least fast is honest. A job used to be the on-ramp to ownership. You worked, you saved, you bought in, you climbed. That escalator is what made the whole American story make sense. Now, the escalator is broken. You can stand on the step all day. It's not going up anymore. And the people already at the top took the elevator. So what do you actually do with this? I'm not going to insult you with just buy assets, bro. If you could easily buy your way onto the top arm of the K, you'd already be there. The whole point is that the door got more expensive right as more people reach for the handle. But here's the genuinely useful takeaway, and it's a mindset shift before it's a money move. Stop measuring your life against the headline economy. The S&P at 7,400 is not your scoreboard unless you own a meaningful slice of it. The record net worth stat is an average being dragged into the stratosphere by people who own yachts. Comparing your checking account to that number is like comparing your jog time to a stat that includes Usain Bolt. Technically the same race, functionally a different sport. The practical version. Figure out, ruthlessly, whether each dollar you control is working as a wage or working as an asset. Wages feed you today. Assets, even small, boring, unglamorous ones, are the only thing that quietly moves you toward the top arm over time. Even a tiny amount, automated and ignored for a decade, changes which line you're standing on. It won't feel like much. The owners didn't feel it either. They just woke up one day on the right side of the K. The K-shaped economy stopped being a phase. It's the architecture now. The recovery everyone was waiting for already happened. It just happened for somebody else. And if you want to understand the single biggest reason that escalator broke, why owning a home became the dividing line between the two Americas in the first place, that's a whole story of its own. So next time, we're going to pull back the curtain on the housing market and why an entire generation got priced out of the one asset that used to be a birthright. Because once you see how that machine works, the rest of this starts to make a terrifying amount of sense. I'll see you there.